Welcome back to Power in Politics. Some of the most powerful people in Canada's political and corporate world are gathering at this very moment in Ottawa. The occasion, it's a farewell dinner to honor the outgoing head of one of the most powerful corporate advocacy groups in the country. The person everyone is here to celebrate is Tom D'Aquino. Now, Tom D'Aquino, many people call him D'Aquino, but it's actually D'Aquino, leads the Canadian Council of Chief Executives. It is, and we checked with him. The man that will replace D'Aquino joins me now. He is the former Liberal Cabinet Minister, John Manley. John Manley, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Well, first of all, congratulations on being the President-designate of the Council for Chief Executives. What do you see as your role in this group?
Well, first of all, it's an organization that has a long and rather storied history of being front and center in public policy discussions. It represents 150 of the largest corporations in Canada, so therefore a very large percentage of the private sector GDP is generated by these companies. A huge amount of employment, a lot of the tax revenue that governments realize comes from them. So of course they're on the front lines of the economy, and they have very valid opinions and thoughtful opinions about government policy in a range of areas.
People will now want to find out in this role what you stand for. So let's just go over some key issues that you'll probably have to deal with when you take over this new role in January. First of all, pensions. We've been mentioning it all day today. You were on the board of Nortel. You saw those Nortel pensioners protesting on Parliament Hill recently. What's your view? Is that, quote unquote, they were robbed by corporate Canada of their pensions? What's your view on pension?
Well, two questions there. What happened to the Nortel pension is the same thing that happened to a lot of company plans, private plans, RRSPs, and everything else, is that public equities declined in value sharply, and therefore the solvency of that plan became an issue. Not a problem if you've got an ongoing entity, because companies then have to put more money in. But where you've got a bankruptcy, you're just out of time and out of luck.
So what do governments do? I mean, now you're on one side, the private side. What's the answer here when you've got a private issue and a public issue? Where do you stand on that? What has to happen?
Well, you need to aggregate those interests. You need to deal with both of them. And how you fix Nortel, I think that probably can't be done. How we deal with pensions going forward, I think, is that companies increasingly are going to be backing away from defined benefit pension plans. I think that's clear, simply because this sort of thing happens. Discount rates move against you, public equities move against you, suddenly your plan becomes...
Does the government have to move in then?
Well, you know, the United States does. I think if I were the finance minister, I'd say, that's an undefined liability, who knows what it is? And therefore, we're not going to take that.
What do your members want you to do in this particular situation?
Well, I think what members want is those that have defined benefit plans are quite prepared to back them and support them. Where you get a quick adverse change, as we've had in the last year and a half, generally what they'd like is a little more time to put in the additional funds. And from the point of view of the economy, you want some of that too. In other words, you don't want corporations cutting off their capital expenditures because suddenly they have to put an additional $100 or $200 million into the pension plan. If equity markets improve, if discount rates widen, which you'd expect, those amounts would begin to come down again.
And you know this is going to be something that's falling squarely on your plate, because the Liberals, the NDP, and the government, they're all saying, and the people, they say they want action now. So we'll watch for how you negotiate that. Very quickly, a couple of other issues. High dollar, killing manufacturing. We've heard the governor of the bank, Mark Carney, say that this is really hurting the recovery. What do you, in your position, say about that? What's the view?
So the problem for business is volatility. The dollar changes up and down so rapidly that it's difficult for business to adjust to it.
So what do you say? What do you ask the government to do, if anything?
Well, I've been in that seat. In fact, about the only thing the government can do is what Mark Carney is doing. Try to talk it down, try to give indications, signals, but effectively, the government doesn't control the value of the dollar. The government controls short-term interest rates, which will affect the dollar today, tomorrow, next month. Long-term, not so much.
So that's an interesting one. Buy American. Tonight, when Tom DeQuino leaves, we're going to have some former ambassadors, U.S. ambassadors. Wilkins, Salucci will be there. What would you do for corporate Canada about the Buy American specter now that may be killing Canadian exports?
Well, first of all, we need to have allies in the United States that matter on this. And I think for business, the best thing is to work with business allies in the United States. Buy America hurts Americans. We just need them to understand that. We're not a constituency of U.S. policymakers. We're out there, so we need our allies.
Before you go, I want to show you a quote. You recently called for a new paradigm in politics. I like this. What you call a new politics. Let's see, Jer, if we can roll the board here. You said, I think what I'm saying is we need a massive conspiracy among opinion leaders of our society to restore public respect for our institutions of government and the people who offer to serve. I like this conspiracy among opinion leaders. Tell us what you mean by this.
Well, in fact, I went on to say a few things about it. I said, we need citizens to say, treat me like an adult. Have a serious conversation about the public issues of the day. We need politicians who don't spend all their time just attacking each other and belittling other people's points of view and masquerading as though one party has a corner on wisdom and ethics. Citizens know that that's not the way it is. We need journalists, I hope like you, Evan, that are going to say, let's have a serious conversation about the big issues of the day. Let's forget this, who's up, who's down, who's hot, who's cold. Politics is more important than that. It's not a sport, it's not entertainment. It's public policy makes a big amount of difference.
And it's tough in a minority government situation because policy has turned into strategy. You and I both know that.
That's right, and I don't think Canadians are better off for it. I think that we have tough issues facing us. There are tough global issues. In some ways, after the downturn, the difficulties of the last year and a half, the country that comes out of this quickest and with a clear resolve about what they want to do is going to have lasting advantage. We can't spend all our time just playing around the edges of this. We need to talk seriously about the issues. And it's, for every complex problem, there's a crystal clear, elegant solution that's usually wrong. So let's have a serious talk about some of the hard things that confront us.
John Manley, I invite you on to be part of that serious conversation as we go forward. A great pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
And good luck in January when you start your new role.
My pleasure.
Take care. That was John Manley speaking to me earlier. He's the president-designate of the Canadian Council of Chief Executives. Just to give you an idea of how influential this group is, these lead companies collectively administer $3.5 trillion in assets and have annual revenues of over $800 billion. And they are meeting right now. There's over 100 CEOs. Prime Minister Harper is delivering the speech tonight. John Manley himself will be delivering the speech. Prime Ministers Clark, Kretsch, and Martin are all there. So you get an idea of how important, how influential this organization really is. And John Manley will be the president in January. Well, we're following a lot of other developments today, and that means we better go to our breaking news desk. Here's Pia Chattopadhyay. Pia.